Good morning, everyone. Today's webinar on medical device development will focus on device development, design controls, and DHF build-up. So this is really at the core of PLM, and it follows from initial idea, development idea, up till regulatory release, so the initial regulatory release. Today's session will be 45 minutes. We have attendance from different parts of the world, some from Asia, some from different parts of Europe, as well as some early risers in the US. But we will be very strict on time, so I'll get started. So as stated in the previous session, most implementations of device PLM focus on the product definition. This means the creation of parts, creation of products, and the release of these products in different phases. Also, since we are implementing processes to cover from idea to regulatory release, we often, or the organizations we work with, often track compliance status or regulatory status in one way or another. And this is typically to match what kind of input requirements we have, so market requirements or product requirements, and how do they match the validation results, so that we can confirm that we are on target for our device development. At a later stage, the compliance status or regulatory status is about our achievement of regulatory maturity, to make sure that we have the appropriate submissions approved to match the marketing authorizations for a particular market. And as in most cases, we track our products over the development phases, as in this example, a stage gate process. And this is, of course, to understand how far we are with a development, and are we on track with regards to our product release or device release. So this is really the three cornerstones of all our implementations. In the last session, we mentioned that we often establish one common version of the truth, that is the PLM backbone, and we build this upon the product definition, of course, a mapping of the skills in the organization to the product approval and the processes in the organization, and a mapping of these to the development process. And when we're doing this, we're establishing a truly cross-functional implementation of the development process, so that we can work on a global scale, most likely, virtually towards that common version of the truth. And when we implement this, we make sure that it's set up in line with the current regulations and requirements, whether it's European or Canadian or US requirements. We do set it up in line with the submissions required for different markets, whether it's self-declaration, as here in Europe, or if it's submissions based for different regulations. And we do set them up in line with product compliance requirements and materials compliance requirements, to make sure that we fulfill the relevant requirements and standards for global market access. This means if this is set up properly, whenever we store a product towards the database, we store it in a context. It will be set up according to specific market requirements, and with this we'll set it up with proper tasks, proper routines and proper approval processes. The same is true for the documentation, say documents we're using, whether it's part specifications or drawing prints or CAD models. And these are connected to our parts products and our other processes, whether it's quality processes or regulatory processes. As we saw in the last webinar, we addressed then the document management part. How do we approve documents? How do we have good visibility in those approvals? And that's done in general for all control documents or all specifications document we use during product development. Today, we'll focus, or we'll start in the same idea that we're setting up the stage gate process. We're setting up the processes and the routines properly. But what will follow in detail is, of course, from an idea of a new device in a product line, or input from the product management team or the market organization, or from customers or patients, to the actual new introduction of a device, and that is done as a project. Project with a stage gate process. And in similarity with the session last week, it's also task-based, so we can clearly see what has been achieved. But the difference is that the tasks are not set up necessarily with a workflow, but rather with a project, with a more extensive set of tasks. And we're setting up the tasks depending on what kind of category of project it is, what is to be achieved. It might be a development project, as we'll look at today, or a quality project, say a copper project, or a regulatory submission project. But it follows a stage gate process, which means that whenever we store deliverables, it's stored against a set of folders, which in this case will represent our design controls categories. So it's clearly defined deliverables for design input, design output, design verification and validation, etc. At the same time, following the same stage gate process is also the product definition. And one project which will rule the revisioning of a particular product. So assume that it would be a facelift project. This means that we will take an existing portfolio and product definition, and we will, in line with the stage gate project, update all the specifications, all the parts, BOMs, DMRs, the DHF of this product, and take it through the action stage gate process. While doing so, of course, we are mapping the tasks of the project with the different deliverables of the product definition. And this might be the requirement to test baseline, which we're tracking, and then we're getting the actual status with regards to achievement of a specific technical standard or a particular set of requirements, for example, regulations. And we're doing this for requirements to tests, or we're doing it for quality properties. We're doing this for, as in this case, the product hazards and the product risks. So we're tracking these hazards. We take them over from the product definition, from the parts and bill of materials, and we take them forward through the use of a project. And when doing so, of course, we can track, for example, as with the hazards here, we can track those over time towards the different design controls, design inputs and design outputs, to see Do we control the residual risk, as in this case? Do we control the compliance status as the project is progressing? And this interplay between the product and the reuse of a product in the project, and then when it's released, a return back of the DHF and the project contents back to the line organization. That's the kind of interplay we want to track in our PLM implementations. At a later stage, we're also tracking design outputs, and these might be modules or systems or subsystems which we're tracking, as in this case expressed with an bill of material, or it can be a configured product which we're tracking along with the development project. And we can track them as deliverables connected to a specific build or a baseline. So we're tracking the progress in that release. In the end, of course, we'll have a completed or completed DMRs for the relevant configurations, and those are delivered to the line organization. And this is really the interplay we're working with. And as we will see in the next webinar later on in October, we will build upon what we've developed here with design controls and with the DHF and the final DMRs, and we'll take those through an engineering change. That's the next step. Today, we'll focus primarily on the new development project. What are we typically doing? What are we viewing in the project? And how does it all fit together to establish this project, product, and part top node device model? Okay. So we will jump into the demo environment, and we will using a user called Chris, and Chris is a project manager. There are two, when working with new development projects, there are two different roles primarily we work with in the 3D Experience platform. One is the full project manager, and that's the one I'm using right now. And there's also a light user, a project member. And the project member has limited rights. She can track her deliverables, of course, track project status, and approve deliverables, such view a project, view the design controls and the DHF buildup, but it's somewhat limited functionality. And this is the project manager who has full functionality. The app we're working with here, let's see if we can get some more space. So, under my favorite apps as project manager, I have program and DHF homepage. And as stated, this is very much what I work with. It's projects. These are the active projects, active as of right now in my organization. I have a DHF view to have a good overview of the different active DHFs or design history files generated of as of right now, and they are divided up for different products. So if I open up under this project here, I will see that there are design inputs, for example, and there are different deliverables under this view. If I want to drill down into a specific project, I'll select on the project name, and that takes me into the project. I can see it's active. I can see what's their current status. We're in progress. We're slipping behind, and we have some late tasks. And I can drill down and see what's the burn down chart as of right now. I can view the Gantt chart, and I can check different states, different issues, different risks. Here's an overview of currently reported risks in the project. How am I developing with regards to the budget, and what are recent assessments? But what I'm really interested in this case is to understand, to start with, how am I relating this project to my products? And I can see, if I go under govern item in this case, that I have two different revisions of a product. So we started off with this AAD, so it's a heart starter. And we created a first revision, A, and now we've initiated this development project based on that revision, and we're taking it further to a revision B. From this view, I can select on the product, and I will see more details on the project, I can see what kind of product line it relates to, and this is the top level product, the reusable product, which I'm using as a common grouping of different models and different evolutions of these models. Under here I can have parts of my change planning. I can have common requirements, for example. I can have common regulatory properties, such as shared submissions for the different marketing approvals for this product. And in order to help the work with regulatory, in this case, I have a link to a regulatory sub-project. I have the DHF view, so I can see what's current status. Let's expand this one. So I can see easily what are current deliverables. And I can navigate over to the DMR view if I have any DMR deliverables this far, which is not the case. It's probably in an early phase, this development project. If I want to navigate back to the project, I just go to the product main page and select on the project. What's essential here then, besides the overall status, is to see the deliverables. And the deliverables are grouped into, in this case, the different design controls variables. And the whole essence here is, as I progress through my project, I store the different deliverables as part of my daily work. If I'm in CATIA or SolidWorks, I store my CAD drawings or models. And as soon as I do that, they are automatically connected to a task, stored towards for the design output, if that's what I'm storing. And as soon as they are approved in a gate review, a formal review, and sign off, they're also automatically transferred to the DHF. And if we also have the DHF connected with a technical file, then at the same point they will be available for the regulatory team to be taken over to the dossier and technical file folders. So this is where I can track my deliverables, and I can do that, and I do that through my tasks. So let's have a look at the different tasks. So for the project, I have an overall progress status, and that's shown on the top level here. And we can see that we've got started. We're of the total estimated effort for this implementation, we've achieved a progress of almost 18%. And that's looking at the completion of different subtasks. If we want to understand where we are right now, current status, we can see that on the ideation and requirements phase, and we can see that we're halfway through. There are a few tasks here which have been completed, and we can see that current efforts are put into customer requirements. And here we have 2 different deliverables. All these different items here, or tasks, or phases, whatever they are, on the lowest level, they're always tasks. And the tasks do have deliverables. They can have ingoing templates as well as outgoing deliverables. And their purpose with those is to divide up the tasks in the organization virtually, provide the relevant input or template files, ask for according to instructions, ask to them to be carried out by the assigned person, and then for that person to fill in the information. And with this, everyone can see what's the current status, what are the current tasks, and if they have the proper access rights, they can also review the details and see exactly what's going on. So in this case, if I'm interested in the requirement spec, I could either view the final deliverable, the approved deliverable. As we saw last week, we're generating a PDF file or a non-editable file, and that would be the actual Word document, while we have a working document, which is the living document. So if we go into a task here and have a closer look at that one, we look at the deliverables, and we can select the deliverable. And this will take us directly into the actual deliverable. So in this case, it's a requirement spec with requirements. So these are the detailed requirements. We see we have different interface definitions. We have different sections, and here we have the detailed requirements, whatever they might be. If I want to understand status of this requirement spec, what has been achieved, what kind of mapping do we have between the requirements, in this way I can see, starting from the open task, I can see, okay, what's the current status, and I can run, for example, the traceability assessment on this one. And if I want to track requirement to test, I get my traceability report, and we can drill down into the current mapping between input requirements and the final test validation, and see why aren't we done yet? What are the open issues, if there are any, and if that's the expectation for the next gate. Now we're still in quite an early phase, so this is let's close this one. As we progress through the different stages, so that was the ideation and requirements. As we progress, for example, then later on to design and development, we can start these tasks at an earlier time. Here we can see that it's rather design output. So we're looking at the final deliverables from the development activity, and that's the categorization we see on the DHF element here. If we go into that BOM and hardware design task, we look at the deliverables in that case. Of course, we'll navigate to the part. This is the top level part. And it's the assumption that we will check in and release this revision of a part as part of this deliverable. If we look into the details, in this case, we are keeping the not only top level part, of course, but with that we keep the information on the DMR and the different DMRs. So it might be that we store the DMR on the subsystems. We might, as in this case, store it on the actual configured product, and we will then have several different DMRs under this tab. And in order to navigate their different layouts, we work with the filters. So we can see, okay, this is a DMR specific for a specific product configuration, or as in this case, specifics for a particular plant. And I might have different plants. I might want to view current and pending revisions and effectivity. And I can also control the effectivity with date, for example. And it will automatically filter out the relevant information for that particular factory. What I showed was we came from the project, we navigated over to the product, but we can also at a later stage, of course, navigate over to the configured part and the top level part and its DMR. Anything which we're working with in PLM can be attached as a deliverable, whether it's a specification or a document, a requirement, a risk, a hazard, a project plan, routings, routing sequence for a manufacturing site, etc. And of course, for any sub-deliverable, any subsystem here, we can have as sub-deliverables for a task. Okay. We will go back to the project, and I will let's see if we can close a few windows. I'm using 3D Experience platform here out of the box, and that's quite common when we're working with the project modules. It's really core to the 3D Experience platform. We use the projects for, as in this case, development project for the design teams or development teams. But this really tracks everything from development to the released product in production. So it spans a cross-functional team. We can also map it with other type of projects. In this case, we're having a submission project. It's the same basic logic, but it's set up for regulatory submissions. Same idea with deliverables and deliverables from different tasks. And if we drill down here, we can see that these are the different documents here, and we're tracking them. We could do the same with, say, a large change project, which we will look closer into in the next webinar. Or we could have it for complaints and COPA projects, for example. The good thing with this is that we can do resource assessments. So if we are within this task view, we also have a resource pool available. So if I want to switch into assignment or allocation view, the setup here is that I have different pools of skilled people in my organization, good organizations or good people in a global organization located globally on different sites with different skills and skill setup and roles. And based on their role or skill set, I can assign different tasks. So I think I'll get started here with some of the assignments here. And if I've said that a particular task should be performed by a particular role, that intersection here will be available, and I can do my assignments accordingly. And it's just right-click and I'll assign a specific person to a specific task. It's a project. It keeps the design controls deliverables. It keeps a resource pool where I can allocate resources. With experiments functionality, I can create different baselines for different scenarios. Assume that I'm trying out in an early phase different regulatory strategies. Or if I want to try out, how does this work if I combine it with a regulatory project or a quality project? How will it work out? I can also use the Gantt chart for my planning, and it's quite a powerful tool for modifying the timing of different tasks within the project, setting up the dependencies between the different tasks. It has basic logic quite similar to MS Project, but the difference is, of course, it's fully web-based and it's connected to the deliverables directly. Under the schedule functionality here, I have all the possible tools I could ask for when it comes to creating tasks, adding projects, creating subtasks. And it's the functionality required either to run this kind of overview stage gate project for hardware development or a combined product of software and hardware and electronics, or if I'm running in an agile way with a burn down charge and agile iterations. It can work in both project setups. In order to set this up, I mean, these are quite extensive set of different phases and gates. I set up either I can, if I want to create a new project, I typically create them from templates, or I create them from existing projects, just taking an existing project as a base. The parameters I typically work with, I'll create a project here from the template. So I probably have a library of different templates. The templates are generated from projects, so when I'm satisfied with the setup, I store that. Let's choose a fast track developments. And if I select that one, what it does, it offers me one or several questions, so I can set up, for example, for different kind of classification of development projects. Say, assume it's a class 2 project. I want to have certain tasks depending on which markets I want to set this up for. And if that's the case, I will have qualifying questions on what's the market to address, what's the regulatory scheme for that particular market, is this a class 1 or class 2 or class 3 product, and if so, what kind of, is it a pre-market approval or a 510K or a technical file or dossier. So that's the layout I'll set up with different configurations. I can also overload different project templates on top of each other. If I want to understand, okay, what does this mean? I'll just have a preview and I'll see the different tasks which are set up for this, and I can drill down and see further details on the tasks. I'll have to give it a name. For this fast track project, I have different categories of projects. Let's see what they are. I have CAPA project, which is obviously a CAPA, and it will give certain functionality for example, setting up the different corrective and preventive actions, setting up the plan, setting up the investigation, setting up the implementation, setting up the effectivity, etc. It also provides the standard tools for hazard analysis, risk analysis related to some specific field experience, if it's a field-related post-market surveillance-related CAPA. Or it's a change project, which is a collection of different, more complex, larger changes. Or it's a submission, so a regulatory submission. In this case, I'll just set it up as a project space. And we could have different templates for financial data. We could have templates for folders and a predefined resource template if you want to use that. We can categorize it and set up additional templates and reuse them. Let's set it up a little bit quicker. So it's fast track development. I submit it. Webinar example. Let's go for the project space. We'll just accept the description as is. We'll read in financial data folders. That is fine. Seems we don't have any resource templates for this one. So let's skip that one. This is in R&D, it's new development. Base currency is Euro. Program we'll create as part of our heart starters. And of course, they could have their basic settings and define categories, classification, for example. I can limit the project visibility, or I could increase it. I could have predefined business goals for new development. When done, and I'm happy with the settings, I just select done on that one. It will automatically launch the project. Haven't set any base currencies for this, so it's complaining a little bit about my settings and reminding me that I should. And here I can see that I have my templates for my design controls. They're empty as of now, so I haven't really categorized any deliverables. And if I navigate into the schedule, I'll see that I have the the work breakdown structure. I have some template for a particular specification here, but that's about it. So in this way, I control the tasks performed in the project, how they're set up, make sure that they're set up in line with our QMS, our quality system, the regulations we want to follow, and it's a good way to get continuity in the product setups and the execution in the new development projects. Okay. We also want to have a look in the, let's go back to the project we started with. So this was our project, and we'll drill down into our stage gate view. So here it shows what's the current state, its ideation and requirements, and this is the routine and function for the gate review. So whenever we're done with the deliverables during this phase, whatever they might be, we approve them, and they will then be updated on the DHF on the product and transferred to that virtual folder. But that is not done until we go through the gates and go through the gate review. If we have a look at the gate review, this is an example from a gate 0 concept study. And here when I enter the gate review, I might look at the different deliverables, but I'll definitely look at the checklist. And for each gate review, I might have control questions. Do I have the relevant development resources? I should either say yes or no, and if I'm fine with this, I'll have a response yes, and this one will be green. I can add my own comments here, but an important part here is that I have to approve the actual gate, either with a full green light for the gate review, or I can do it with this yellow symbol, which is conditional approval. Then I have to clearly state the conditions. If I'm not done with the gate review, I'll show clearly that I want to stay in this state and we cannot pass the gate review yet, and I'll mark it with this clock icon here. So, in summary, on device development, the tools we use to track product development is, of course, the project state, and it's made up of the status of current tasks. Every task has a due date, and when done, it will show what's the progress. We can do the planning and resource planning here if we want to. We definitely want to track the deliverables to see what's the DHF build-up, what are our different deliverables, either project deliverables or product deliverables or the actual DHF. We want to have this interplay between the product folder, what's stored on the product, such as mapping it to relevant complaints, so we can trigger a CAPA, or mapping it to regulatory submissions, things which do exist on a product line level or a product level. We also have always a possibility to connect it to the top level items, whether these are subsystems or systems or configured products, so we can track them as deliverables as well. And they're tracked on CAD models, as in this case, a SolidWorks model. No, it's a CATIA model. Or they're tracked on the DMR or an MBOM level. And of course, we can track our deliverables towards other systems as well if we want to, perhaps triggered by an integration with an ERP system or an EQMS system, whatever it might be. So that's really one of the key the key messages here, that we have a project, we're connecting it to the product as well as the part and the bill of material and the DMR. And as we are progressing through the gates and the gate approvals, we're building up the DHF. And the DHF is really built upon tagging our deliverables as we move along through the stage reviews. And they are approved and updated on the product DHF as part of the project approval. And in the end, when the project is closed, the product DMR continues to live on the product, and with the parts created under that product, with the engineering changes and with the changes out in the field or in production. We also, besides tracking the parts, we could also track the risks, as in this case, and hazards and residual risk. So that is also living as part of the project as it's progressing. We're actually mapping the different hazards to the design input and outputs here. So we're progressing their development over time. We can use it for resource allocations, and we can try out different experiments and baselines to do basic planning of different variations of our projects. It's not built for complex scheduling of project activities, but rather try out different scenarios, see what's the current status, what is the live status on our project, and what are the current resource allocations as of right now. And then, as mentioned, important are the stage gate reviews, part of really the core design controls, where we're approving whether it's a specification or a plan or a final validation. It's all having its effectivity defined by the project here. So with that, we have we're closing early today, but we'll see if there are any quick questions directly brought up. So if there have been questions and they are not logged here, I'll come back and respond via email. I promise to close this session early because we have an upcoming webinar. I thank you very much for attending. I hope it's been a worthwhile session. Main purpose with this session was to give you an idea of what can be done with during product development with regards to 3D experience and the platform. This session focused on the new device development, design controls, and DHF build-up. The next session will be on October 11, and then we will focus on change management. So whatever we created in as the DHF, we will then pick up with a change request. We will assess the change request, do the planning, and take whatever is present on that product, on that part, and that DMR perhaps. We will take that forward through a formal change. So we will go through that and see how do we handle a production change and how does that relate to our change planning, and perhaps how can we put that in relation to our ongoing development projects. So with those words, I'll close this webinar as of today. Thank you very much for attending. If you have any questions, feel free to email me in the coming weeks, just to send them out. This session is of course recorded. It will be available on our website, and you will get a notification via email as soon as it's available. So you can rerun it, share it with colleagues, rerun it, review it, and perhaps send future questions. Okay. Thank you very much for today, and let's see if there are some remaining questions. Yes, there will be a recording on the webinar, and this will be fine. Thank you very much. I'll close the session for today.